The crystal chandelier above the Whitmore family dining table cast prismatic light across the holiday spread. Prime rib lobster tails, sides that cost more than most families' entire Christmas budgets. I sat in my usual spot at the far end, the one closest to the kitchen door, cutting my food into small, deliberate pieces while my family held court. "Maya," my sister Charlotte said, not even bothering to look at me as she adjusted her Cartier bracelet. "Are you still doing that little non-profit thing? The one you're always posting about on LinkedIn?" "It's not a non-profit," I said quietly. "It's a foundation. And yes, I'm still running it." "Running it?" My brother Preston snorted into his wine glass. "That's generous. Don't you mean volunteering at it? There's a difference between running something and playing office." I took a sip of water, letting the familiar sting of his condescension wash over me. At 34, I'd become adept at letting their comments slide past without engaging. "The Global Health Access Foundation," my mother Constance read from her phone with barely concealed disdain. She must have been looking at my LinkedIn profile. Again. Such a grandiose name for such a small operation. "How many employees do you have now, dear?" "Still just you and that college intern." "We have a staff of 43 across 6 continents, I said evenly. "Plus several hundred volunteers and partner organizations." "Volunteers don't count as real employees," Charlotte said dismissively. "Preston runs a hedge fund with 200 employees. Real employees. With salaries and benefits and actual careers." Preston straightened in his seat, preening at the attention. "We're up to $2.3 billion in assets under management now. Just closed a deal that'll net the fund $47 million. Now that's real success, Dad." Richard Whitmore III said proudly, raising his glass to Preston. "Building actual wealth. Creating real value in the marketplace." I continued eating my prime rib, letting the conversation flow around me like I always did. "Maya," Dad turned his attention to me, his expression somewhere between pity and irritation. "When are you going to stop this? This pretending? This playing nonprofit executive? It's been 7 years. 7 years of wasting your Harvard education on feel-good projects that go nowhere. The foundation has distributed over $3 billion in medical resources to underserved communities," I said quietly. "We've helped establish healthcare infrastructure in 42 countries. We've—" "Oh, stop," Mom interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "Stop pretending to be successful. It's embarrassing, Maya. Your siblings have real careers. Real achievements. Charlotte's interior design firm did $18 million in revenue last year. Preston's fund is managing billions. And you're, what? Coordinating donations? Anyone can do that." "It's more complex than," I started. "No, it's not," Dad cut me off. "You took a salary job at some tiny charity and you've inflated it into this fantasy where you're some kind of international humanitarian. We see the truth, Maya. You live in that modest apartment in Alexandria. You drive a 4-year-old Subaru. You wear suits from J.Crew instead of designer labels. If you were really successful, you'd have the markers of success." Charlotte leaned forward, her voice dripping with false concern. "Honey, we're just worried about you. You're 34. You should be building wealth, establishing yourself. Instead, you're playing pretend with this little nonprofit. When are you going to get a real job?" "I have a real job," I said, keeping my voice level. "A real job pays enough that you don't have to live like a graduate student," Preston said. "A real job means you can afford to winter in Aspen with us instead of staying home. A real job means you're not still paying off student loans." I wasn't still paying off student loans. I'd paid them off 5 years ago, but correcting them seemed pointless. "And that apartment," Mom shuddered dramatically. "In Alexandria. My cleaning lady's niece lives in Alexandria, Maya. It's not even DC proper. It's practically suburban." "I like my neighborhood," I said softly. "Of course you do," Dad said, and the pity in his voice was worse than the contempt. "You've convinced yourself that modest living is some kind of virtue. That's what happens when you can't afford better. You make a philosophy out of necessity." The butler, James, who'd worked for the Whitmore family for 30 years, entered quietly with a silver tray. "Excuse me, sir. Today's mail has arrived. There's something marked urgent for Miss Maya." "Probably another fundraising request," Charlotte muttered. "Do nonprofits send themselves donation requests? Like a pyramid scheme?" James set the tray beside me. On top of the pile was a FedEx envelope with Time magazine's logo printed prominently on the label. I opened it carefully while my family continued their conversation, discussing Preston's latest acquisition and Charlotte's upcoming feature in Architectural Digest. Inside was a letter on heavy cardstock, along with several NDAs and scheduling documents. Dear Dr. Whitmore, on behalf of Time magazine, I am delighted to confirm that you have been selected as Time's Person of the Year for your unprecedented contributions to global health equity. Your foundation's revolutionary work distributing COVID-19 vaccines to 94 countries, your leadership in establishing the International Pandemic Response Treaty, and your foundation's $8.7 billion in distributed medical resources over the past 3 years have fundamentally changed global health outcomes for millions of people. We would like to schedule your cover photo shoot for January 4th at our New York studios. Please review the attached NDAs. The Person of the Year selection will be announced publicly on January 15th, but we need to begin photography and interview processes immediately. Your communications director has already been briefed and has the embargo details. Congratulations on this extraordinary honor. Sincerely, Edward Felsenthal, Editor-in-Chief, Time. I read the letter twice, my hands perfectly steady, before setting it down beside my plate. What's that? Mom asked absently. Another certificate of appreciation from some village you sent expired medical supplies to? Something like that, I said quietly. See, that's exactly what I mean, Dad said, seizing the moment. Certificates of appreciation. That's what you have to show for 7 years of work. Preston has a portfolio worth $40 million. Charlotte has a client list that includes 3 senators. And you have certificates. I'm proud of my work, I said simply. Pride doesn't pay the bills, Preston said. Pride doesn't build generational wealth. Pride doesn't get you into the clubs that matter or on the boards that have influence. I'm on several boards, I mentioned quietly. Charlotte laughed. Let me guess, the board of your own nonprofit? Maybe the local community health center? That's not real board membership, Maya. Preston sits on the Federal Reserve Advisory Council. I'm on the Kennedy Center Board of Trustees. Those are real positions. I took another bite of prime rib, chewing slowly. The Kennedy Center Board of Trustees. I'd turned down that position 2 years ago because I didn't have time for ceremonial appointments. I'd also turned down positions on 3 Fortune 500 boards, 2 university boards, and a presidential advisory commission. My schedule didn't allow for positions that were more status than substance. You know what I think? Dad leaned back in his chair, warming to his theme. I think Maya stays in this nonprofit fantasy because she's afraid. Afraid of competing in the real world where results matter and success is measured objectively. It's easier to work at some feel-good charity where everyone's nice and everyone gets participation trophies. That's not, I started. It is though, Mom interrupted. Sweetheart, you were so bright at Harvard. Top of your class. We thought you'd go into medicine properly, become a surgeon like your grandfather, build a lucrative practice, or go into biotech like we suggested. Instead, you got that public health degree and disappeared into the nonprofit sector where no one makes real money. Some of us don't measure success purely in money, I said. How convenient, Charlotte smirked. For people who don't have any. Preston checked his Patek Philippe watch. Speaking of money, I need to make a call. We're closing a deal tonight that'll personally net me about $3 million. Maya, that's more than your nonprofit probably handles in a year, right? Not quite, I said softly. Anyway, Preston stood, already pulling out his phone. Enjoy your certificates and thank you letters, little sis. Some of us have actual work to do. He left the dining room, phone already to his ear, his voice carrying back. Jerry? Yeah, execute the trade. Full position. Charlotte stood as well, smoothing her Chanel dress. I have a client call. Someone's building a 15,000 square foot home in McLean and wants me to design it. The budget is $2 million just for interiors. She glanced at me pointedly. That's probably more than your nonprofit's entire operating budget. Probably not, I said, but she was already gone. Mom sighed, looking at me with something that might have been genuine concern if it wasn't so thoroughly laced with disappointment. Maya, darling, we're not trying to be cruel. We're trying to help you see reality. You're 34 years old. You should be building something real. Accumulating something tangible. Instead, you're spinning your wheels in a sector that goes nowhere. I don't think I'm spinning my wheels, I said quietly. Then show us, Dad challenged. Show us something concrete. Show us real success, real achievement, real impact. Not feelings and intentions and certificates. Show us something that matters in the real world. I will, I said. Soon. Soon, Dad repeated with a sad shake of his head. That's what you've been saying for 7 years. Eventually. Someday. Maya, someday needs to become today, or you're going to wake up at 45 with nothing to show for your life but good intentions. Mom patted my hand as she stood. We love you, dear. We just want better for you than this. She gestured vaguely at me, at my J. Crew suit, at my modest existence. You could have been a surgeon. You could have built something valuable. Instead. She didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I sat alone at the long table after they'd all dispersed. Dad to his study, Mom to her sitting room, my siblings already gone. James returned to clear the plates. Miss Maya, he said quietly as he reached for my plate. I don't mean to overstep, but I've been with this family for 30 years. I've watched you grow up. And I've never seen anyone work as hard as you do, or care as deeply about their work. Thank you, James, I said softly. Whatever you're doing, he continued, his voice low, it matters. Don't let them convince you otherwise. I won't, I promised. He nodded, then noticed the Time magazine envelope. Good news, I hope. Very good, I said. But it's embargoed until January 15th. James's eyes twinkled with understanding. I look forward to that date then. I gathered the Time documents and retreated to the guest room I always stayed in when visiting my parents. The smallest bedroom, the one that used to be a servant's quarters before the Whitmore family expanded the main house. My phone had 17 missed calls and 43 texts. I scrolled through them. Dr. Whitmore, this is Samantha from Time's publicity team. We need to schedule your photo shoot ASAP. Maya, it's Catherine from the foundation. Time's fact-checkers are calling for verification of all our impact numbers. I'm sending them everything. Congratulations. Dr. Whitmore, this is the State Department. Secretary wanted to personally congratulate you before the public announcement. Please call at your convenience. Maya. It's Dr. Patel from WHO. Heard the news through the grapevine. You deserve this more than anyone. The work you've done is revolutionary. I responded to the urgent ones, confirmed the photo shoot, and sent the signed NDAs back to Time. Then I called my communications director, Catherine Mills. Maya. She answered on the first ring. Time's Person of the Year. Do you understand what this means? I have some idea, I said. Some idea? Maya, you're going to be the face on every magazine in every grocery store in America. You're going to be on morning shows, evening news, newspaper front pages. Everyone is going to want to know who Dr. Maya Whitmore is and why Time chose you. I know, I said quietly. Are you ready for that? Because once this announcement goes public, your life changes forever. No more flying under the radar. No more quiet work in the background. I'm ready, I said. I've been ready. Good, Catherine said. Because I'm already getting calls from the New York Times, Washington Post, BBC, CNN. Everyone wants the first interview once the embargo lifts. We need to strategize. After Christmas, I said. Let's schedule a full team meeting on the 26th. We'll plan everything then. Done. And Maya? Your family doesn't know yet, right? No, I said. They don't. How do you think they'll react? I thought about dinner, about Dad's sneer and Mom's pity and my siblings' casual contempt. I think they'll be surprised, I said. Catherine laughed. That's diplomatic. Okay, talk on the 26th. And Maya? Congratulations. No one deserves this more than you. The next morning, Christmas Day, breakfast was a more casual affair. Just immediate family, still in loungewear, eating pastries and drinking coffee while opening gifts. Preston handed out envelopes. Stock options in my fund, he announced proudly. 5,000 shares each. Current valuation puts each gift at about $75,000. Merry Christmas. Charlotte distributed boxes from Tiffany. Custom pieces, she said. I designed them myself. The diamonds alone are worth $20,000 each. Mom and Dad gave generous checks, $50,000 each to their children. For investments, Dad said. Build your wealth. When it came to my gifts, I'd done what I always did: donations to causes my family members cared about, made in their names. Preston, I donated $10,000 to the Financial Literacy Foundation in your name, I said, handing him a certificate. He stared at it. You donated my Christmas gift to charity? It's a tax write-off, I said. And it's a cause you've mentioned supporting. I mentioned it once at a cocktail party, he said flatly. I didn't mean I wanted my Christmas gift donated there. Charlotte opened hers. The Interior Design Education Fund? Maya, I wanted a gift, not a charitable donation. It's still a gift, I said. Just one that helps others too. Mom looked at her certificate. A donation to the Arts Advocacy Alliance. This is very thoughtful, dear, but it's not really a gift for me, is it? It's you imposing your values on our Christmas. I started. You thought you'd make us all feel guilty for wanting actual presents, Preston said. This is exactly what I mean about you living in a fantasy world. Normal people exchange gifts at Christmas. Real, tangible gifts. Not charitable donations that make you feel morally superior. I wasn't trying to. I tried again. Yes, you were, Charlotte interrupted. You're always trying to make us feel bad about having money, about enjoying success, about not being as pure as you with your nonprofit work. Dad set his certificate aside. Maya, this is another example of you not understanding how the real world works. Gifts are about showing appreciation, about understanding what the recipient values. These donations are about what you value. It's selfish, dressed up as generosity. I felt my face flush. I'm sorry. You thought wrong, Mom said, not unkindly. Next year, perhaps just a nice bottle of wine or a book. Something that shows you actually thought about us as individuals, not as vehicles for your charitable agenda. The rest of Christmas Day passed in uncomfortable silence. I spent most of it in my room reviewing the time materials and preparing for the photo shoot. December 26th, I drove back to my modest apartment in Alexandria. A comfortable 2-bedroom that I'd chosen specifically because it was close to my office and didn't draw attention. The Global Health Access Foundation headquarters were in a converted warehouse 3 blocks away, where our staff of 43 coordinated operations across 6 continents. The foundation team was already gathered in our conference room when I arrived. Person of the Year, my deputy director, Dr. James Chin, started applauding as I walked in. The entire staff joined in. Thank you, I said, feeling genuinely emotional. But this isn't about me. It's about all of us. Everything we've built together. Time disagrees, Catherine said, pulling up the draft article on the screen. Listen to this. Dr. Maya Whitmore has single-handedly revolutionized global health equity. Her foundation's innovative distribution networks delivered COVID-19 vaccines to 94 countries, reaching populations that pharmaceutical companies and governments had written off as inaccessible. Her work has saved an estimated 4.7 million lives. That's a team effort, I protested. Led by you, Dr. Chin said firmly. You built this from nothing, Maya. 7 years ago you had an idea and $50,000 in seed funding from a small grant. Now we're operating with a $2.8 billion annual budget, we've distributed $8.7 billion in medical resources, and we've fundamentally changed how the world thinks about health equity. The vaccination program alone, another staff member added, reached 340 million people in remote areas. That's unprecedented. Catherine pulled up another document. Times fact-checkers verified everything. They were incredibly thorough. They confirmed the $8.7 billion in distributed resources, the 42 countries where we've helped establish healthcare infrastructure, the 4.7 million lives saved estimate, all of it. Maya, this is real. This is documented. This is objective success. My family thinks I'm a failure, I said quietly. The room went silent. What? Dr. Chin looked genuinely shocked. They think I'm pretending to be successful, I explained. They think I work at a small nonprofit with minimal impact. They don't understand what we actually do here. Have you told them? Catherine asked. I've tried, I said. They don't listen. They measure success in personal wealth and visible status. They see my modest lifestyle and conclude I'm unsuccessful. Your modest lifestyle is a security protocol, Dr. Chin said. You've received death threats from anti-vaccination groups, From pharmaceutical companies angry about your price negotiations, from governments whose corruption you've exposed. You live modestly because living ostentatiously would make you a target. I know, I said. But they don't know that. And I've never been able to explain it in a way they'd understand. Well, Catherine said slowly, they're about to understand. Time's announcement goes public in 20 days. Every news outlet in the world will cover it. Your face will be on magazine covers in every grocery store. They'll see it whether they're looking for it or not. Good, I said quietly. The photo shoot in New York was surreal. Time's photographers spent 6 hours capturing different looks. Professional shots in my work clothes, candid shots in the Foundation's satellite office, dramatic shots with symbolic props representing global health. We want to show both sides, the photographer explained. The serious healthcare executive who negotiates with world leaders, and the humanitarian who cares deeply about individual lives. I'm just trying to solve problems, I said. You're solving problems that affect millions of people, the photographer corrected. That's Person of the Year worthy. The interview process was even more intense. Times reporters spent 3 days with me, at the Foundation in the field visiting one of our vaccine distribution centers in rural Virginia, interviewing staff and beneficiaries. Your family doesn't know about this honor yet? The lead reporter asked during our final session. No, I confirmed. They don't really follow my work closely. Why not? They don't think it's significant, I said simply. The reporter's eyes widened. They don't think saving 4.7 million lives is significant? They don't know about the 4.7 million lives, I said. They think I work at a small charity. They've never asked for details. That must be painful, the reporter said gently. It's been educational, I said. It's taught me that I can't control how others perceive me. I can only control the work I do and the impact I make. Their perception is their problem, not mine. That's a very mature perspective. It's survival, I said. If I'd let their perception define me, I would have quit years ago. Instead, I let the work speak for itself. And now time is speaking for the work, the reporter said. Yes, I agreed. Now time is speaking for it. January 15th arrived like any other Wednesday. I went to the office early, knowing that by noon, my life would fundamentally change. At 11:47 a.m., Time magazine posted the announcement on their website. At 11:48 a.m., my phone started ringing. At 11:52 a.m., Preston called. I answered. Hello. Why? His voice was strained. Time magazine just announced. They said you're Person of the Year. That's a joke, right? Some kind of mistake. It's not a mistake, I said calmly. But they're saying your foundation distributed $8.7 billion in medical resources. That you helped vaccinate 340 million people in remote areas. That you saved 4.7 million lives. That can't be real. It's all verified, I said. Times fact-checkers spent weeks confirming everything. But, how? You work at a small nonprofit. You live in Alexandria. You drive a Subaru. I work at the Global Health Access Foundation, I corrected, which operates in 94 countries with a staff of 43 and an annual operating budget of $2.8 billion. I live in Alexandria because it's close to our headquarters and because a high-profile lifestyle would make me a security target. I drive a Subaru because reliable transportation matters more to me than status symbols. Silence. Preston. I have to go, he said and hung up. Charlotte called 17 minutes later. Is it true? Yes. All of it? The billions of dollars? The millions of lives saved? Yes. Why didn't you tell us? I tried, I said. You didn't listen. You'd already decided I was unsuccessful, so you filtered everything I said through that belief. We thought you were exaggerating. Inflating your role to feel important. I wasn't, I said simply. Why? I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I said. But maybe next time you could ask questions instead of making assumptions. She hung up without responding. Mom called at 2:37 p.m. I was in the middle of a CNN interview via Zoom, so I let it go to voicemail. Her message was brief. Maya, please call us. We need to talk. The whole family needs to talk. Dad called at 4:15 p.m. then again at 4:47 p.m., then again at 5:23 p.m. I was doing back-to-back interviews, BBC, NBC, ABC, PBS, and couldn't answer. His fourth voicemail was different in tone. Maya, this is your father. I've just finished reading the Time article. All of it. Every word. I owe you an apology. We all do. Please call when you can. By 6 p.m., the Foundation's lobby was filled with camera crews. CNN wanted a facility tour. The Washington Post wanted an exclusive sit-down. The New York Times wanted to embed a reporter with us for a week. Catherine was in her element, coordinating media requests and managing the chaos. Your family's called 16 times, she informed me between interviews. Should I add them to the callback list? Not yet, I said. Let them sit with it for a while. Cold, Dr. Chin observed with approval. I like it. The cover of Time hit newsstands January 16th. My face, professional, serious, determined, stared out from every grocery store checkout lane in America. The headline read, Dr. Maya Whitmore, the woman who changed global health. The article was comprehensive, detailing the Foundation's work, my background, my education, my approach to healthcare equity. It also included a section that made my stomach drop. Despite her extraordinary achievements, Dr. Whitmore maintains an almost ascetic lifestyle. She lives in a modest apartment in Alexandria, Virginia, drives a used car, and rarely discusses her work in social settings. I don't do this for recognition, she told Time. I do it because it needs to be done. The work is its own reward. When asked about her family's perception of her work, Dr. Whitmore was diplomatic. They measure success differently than I do. That's okay. I don't need external validation to know the work matters. My phone rang. I answered. Hello. Maya. His voice cracked. I just read the Time article. Cover to cover. Every sidebar, every statistic, every quote. And Christ, Maya, I owe you an apology that I don't even know how to articulate. Okay, I said neutrally. We've been mocking you for 7 years. 7 years of dismissing your work, calling you unsuccessful, treating you like you were playing pretend. And the whole time you were saving millions of lives. Literally. Millions. Yes, I said simply. The article says you've negotiated with world leaders. That you brokered the International Pandemic Response Treaty. That you've testified before the UN. That pharmaceutical CEOs take your calls. Maya, you're more successful than Preston, Charlotte, and I combined, and we've been treating you like you're a failure. Yes, I said again. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you force us to understand? I tried, I said quietly. At every Christmas dinner, every family gathering, I tried to explain what I do. You didn't listen. You'd already decided what my life was, so you couldn't hear what I was telling you. We should have asked better questions, Dad said, and he sounded genuinely broken. We should have listened instead of lecturing. We should have respected you enough to actually learn about your work instead of assuming we already knew. Yes, I agreed. You should have. Can you forgive us? I was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, Dad. You didn't just dismiss my work. You dismissed me. For 7 years, you treated me like I was stupid, like I was pretending, like I was an embarrassment. That's not something that can be fixed with one apology after Time magazine forces you to see the truth. I know, he said. I know. But Maya, please, let us try. Let us actually learn about your work. Let us be the family you deserved all along. Maybe, I said. But not today. Today I have 17 more interviews scheduled and a foundation to run. The work doesn't stop because my family finally decided to pay attention. Of course, Dad said quickly. Of course. Whenever you're ready. Just, please be ready someday. We'll see, I said and ended the call. The next 3 weeks were a blur. Interviews, photo shoots, speaking engagements, award ceremonies. The Foundation's donation requests tripled. Everyone wanted to support Time's Person of the Year. Our annual budget doubled overnight as major donors finally understood the scope of our work. This is what it takes, I told Dr. Chin as we reviewed funding requests. 7 years of hard work, millions of lives saved, and we couldn't get major donors interested. But one Time cover and suddenly everyone wants to help. That's how visibility works, Dr. Chin said. Frustrating but useful. Useful, I agreed. but also a reminder that we're doing this work with or without recognition. The recognition is nice, but it's not why we're here. Spoken like a true person of the year, he grinned. February 10th, I finally agreed to have dinner with my family. They'd called daily, sent flowers, sent letters, sent everything except an understanding of why I might need space. The dinner was at a restaurant, neutral ground. No Whitmore family estate, no home field advantage. Just a quiet table at a Georgetown restaurant where we could talk without an audience. They were all there, Mom, Dad, Preston, Charlotte. They stood when I arrived, awkward and uncertain in a way I'd never seen them. Maya, Mom said, her voice trembling. Thank you for coming. I sat without ceremony. I have 90 minutes. I have a call with the Gates Foundation at 8 p.m. Of course, Dad said quickly. We understand. You're busy. You're always busy. We didn't realize how busy. How important your work is. How important you are. I've always been this busy, I said. I've always been doing this work. The only thing that's changed is time told you to pay attention. Preston leaned forward. Maya, God, I don't even know where to start. I bragged about managing $2.3 billion like it made me a king. Your foundation moves $2.8 billion annually and saves millions of lives. I'm a footnote. You're Person of the Year. It's not a competition, I said. I made it one, Preston said. I spent years competing with you, mocking you, dismissing you, and the whole time, you were operating on a level I couldn't even comprehend. I'm sorry. Deeply, genuinely sorry. Charlotte's eyes were red. I mocked your J.Crew suits. Your apartment. And time explained that you live modestly for security reasons. That you've received death threats. That living ostentatiously would put your life in danger. Maya, you're risking your safety to do this work, and I mocked you for not wearing designer clothes. Yes, I said simply. You did. We were wrong, Mom said, tears streaming down her face. About everything. We measured you by the wrong metrics. We valued the wrong things. We were so focused on visible success that we couldn't see the success that actually mattered. The article mentioned you turned down a Kennedy Center board position, Charlotte said quietly. I bragged about getting that position, and you'd already turned it down because you didn't have time for ceremonial roles. I also turned down 3 Fortune 500 board positions, I said. And a presidential advisory commission. And a directorship at the World Health Organization. Not because I'm not qualified, because I don't have time. The foundation's work is too important to dilute my focus with status positions. Dad looked like he might be sick. We told you to get a real job. To stop pretending. To show us concrete success. And you've been more successful than any of us imagined possible. Yes, I said. I have. Can you ever forgive us? Mom asked. I looked at them, my family, diminished and humbled, finally seeing me clearly. I don't know, I said honestly. You didn't just dismiss my work. You fundamentally didn't respect me as a person. You decided who I was without ever actually asking. That's not something that heals quickly. We'll do whatever it takes, Preston said desperately. We'll volunteer at your foundation. We'll donate. We'll publicly support your work. Whatever you need. I don't need your money or your time, I said. I need you to understand that success isn't measured in visible wealth. That impact matters more than image. That saving lives is more valuable than managing portfolios or designing interiors. We understand that now, Charlotte said. Do you? I challenged. Or do you understand that time validated my work, so now it counts? If Time hadn't named me Person of the Year, would you still be dismissing me? Be honest. The silence was damning. That's what I thought, I said softly. You respect the recognition, not the work. You respect the title, not the person. And that's not real respect. That's just responding to social proof. Then teach us, Dad said. Come to Sunday dinner. Tell us about your work. Help us understand. We're asking to learn, Maya. Really learn. I considered it. One dinner. No promises beyond that. You get one chance to actually listen. Not to wait for your turn to talk, not to compare my work to yours, not to judge or dismiss or redirect. One chance to genuinely understand what I do and why it matters. Yes, Mom said immediately. Yes. Thank you. This Sunday, I said. I'll come to dinner. And I'll explain exactly what the Global Health Access Foundation does, how we do it and why it matters. And you're going to listen like your relationship with me depends on it, because it does. That Sunday, I arrived at the Whitmore estate with a presentation deck, impact reports, and 7 years of pent-up explanations. James greeted me at the door. Miss Maya. Congratulations on your time honor. I've told everyone who'll listen that I've known you since you were born, and I always knew you'd do extraordinary things. Thank you, James, I said warmly. The family was gathered in the living room, all of them attentive and nervous in a way I'd never experienced. Okay, I said, connecting my laptop to their TV. Let me tell you about the Global Health Access Foundation. For the next 3 hours I walked them through everything. The founding story, how I'd identified a critical gap in vaccine distribution to remote areas and built a foundation to solve it. The growth trajectory from $50,000 in seed funding to a $2.8 billion annual operating budget. The innovations, proprietary cold chain technology that could preserve vaccines in areas without reliable electricity. The partnerships, working with 94 countries, 200+ NGOs and dozens of pharmaceutical companies to get medicine where it was needed. I showed them photos from the field. Children receiving vaccines in remote Ugandan villages, mobile clinics in the Amazon, training programs for local healthcare workers in Nepal. I explained the pandemic response, how we'd pivoted our entire distribution network to deliver COVID vaccines when no one else could reach certain populations. I detailed the impact: 4.7 million lives saved, 340 million people vaccinated, healthcare infrastructure established in 42 countries. I walked them through the complexity, negotiating with pharmaceutical companies, coordinating with government agencies, managing logistics across 6 continents, navigating political challenges, overcoming cultural barriers. And I explained the costs, the death threats from anti-vaccination groups, the security protocols that govern my lifestyle, the 80-hour work weeks, the constant travel, the pressure of knowing that every decision potentially affected millions of lives. When I finished, the room was silent. Preston spoke first. I had no idea. Not even a hint. Maya, this is more complex and important than anything I've ever worked on. My design firm is trivial compared to this, Charlotte said quietly. I make rich people's houses pretty. You save lives. Both things have value, I said. But they're not equivalent. And for 7 years, you've treated them as if your work was more important simply because it generated more visible wealth. We were wrong, Dad said. Completely, fundamentally wrong. Maya, I built a commercial real estate empire. I thought that made me successful. But you've built something that actually matters. That changes the world. That saves lives. Mom was crying quietly. I'm so proud of you. And so ashamed that I needed Time magazine to make me see it. That's the part I'm still angry about, I admitted. I've been telling you for 7 years. You didn't listen until an external authority validated me. That suggests you don't actually trust my judgment or respect my assessment of my own work. You're right, Preston said. And I don't know how to fix that. I don't know how to prove we've changed beyond just changing. Being different going forward. Start by actually asking questions about my work, I said. Not in a let's humor Maya way, but in a genuine we want to understand way. Stop measuring my success by your metrics. Stop expecting me to want what you want. Accept that I've chosen a different path and respect that choice. We can do that, Dad said. We will do that. And stop introducing me as your daughter who works at a nonprofit, I added. I'm the founder and CEO of the Global Health Access Foundation. I'm Times Person of the Year. I'm a global health policy expert who's testified before the UN. That's not working at a nonprofit. That's leadership. You're absolutely right, Charlotte said. And I'm sorry. We've been minimizing your achievements with our language choices. One more thing, I said. Stop pitying me for my lifestyle. I choose to live modestly. It's not poverty, it's security protocol and personal values. My net worth is actually higher than Preston's because I've saved carefully and invested wisely. I could afford a mansion in McLean if I wanted one. I don't want one. Respect that choice. Preston's eyes widened. Your net worth is higher than mine? Yes, I said simply. The foundation pays me a salary of $185,000, which is modest for a CEO managing a $2.8 billion operation. But I've saved aggressively, invested well, and I've received several awards with monetary components. Plus I inherited money from grandma that I invested carefully. I'm worth about $4.7 million. You're worth $4.2 million. But I don't measure my success by net worth, so I've never mentioned it. The room went silent again. You've been financially successful by our metrics the whole time, Mom said slowly, and you never said anything. Because it's not what matters to me, I explained. I didn't want you to respect me because I had money. I wanted you to respect me because my work has meaning and impact. But you couldn't see past your own measuring sticks. We're seeing now, Dad said firmly. Maya, we're seeing now. And we're asking for a chance to rebuild our relationship on new foundations. Foundations based on respect, understanding, and actually listening to you. I looked at them, my family humbled and sincere, finally seeing me. Hey, I said. We can try. But it's going to take time. 7 years of dismissal doesn't heal with one dinner and some apologies. We understand, Preston said. We'll put in the time. Whatever it takes. 6 months later, I stood on stage at the United Nations accepting the Global Health Leadership Award. My family was in the audience, all of them by choice. Afterward, at the reception, a reporter asked Dad what it was like having a daughter who was Times Person of the Year. I'm proud beyond words, Dad said, and I could hear the genuine emotion in his voice. But more than that, I'm grateful. Grateful that she's shown me what real success looks like. Grateful that she's patient enough to let us learn. Grateful that despite everything, she's giving us a chance to be the family she deserved all along. Preston had started volunteering at the foundation one Saturday per month, using his financial expertise to optimize our investment strategies. Charlotte had designed our new office space pro bono, creating a workspace that reflected our mission and values. Mom had joined our board of directors, bringing her network and fundraising skills to support our expansion. They were trying. Really trying. And slowly, carefully, I was letting them back in. Speech, someone called out, and the reception fell quiet. I hadn't prepared remarks, but I stepped to the microphone. 7 years ago, I started the Global Health Access Foundation with a simple belief: that everyone deserves access to quality health care, regardless of where they're born or how much money they have. That belief was mocked by people who thought I was naive, who thought I was pretending to be successful, who thought I didn't understand how the real world worked. But here's what I've learned. The real world is the one where millions of people die from preventable diseases because they can't access basic medical care. The real world is the one where vaccine distribution stops at national borders or economic barriers. The real world is the one where children die because no one thought their lives were worth the effort to save. Success isn't measured in portfolio values or designer labels or visible status. Success is measured in lives saved, problems solved, and impact made. And by that measure, the last 7 years have been the most successful of my life. To everyone who dismissed me, who mocked me, who told me to stop pretending, thank you. You taught me that external validation doesn't matter. The work matters. The impact matters. The lives saved matter. Everything else is just noise. The room erupted in applause. And in the front row, my family stood and applauded loudest of all. Not because time told them to. Not because the UN validated me. But because they'd finally learned to measure success by what actually matters. It had taken 7 years and a magazine cover. But they'd finally learned. And that, I thought as I looked at them, was its own kind of success.